Gary, before starting, I would like to make you this question. Who believes that the lunch break can impact my performance during this session? Please don't raise your hands. No, I said no. Anyway, so let's start.
Το κάνει τελικά, Το κάνει.
Who? No, I don't think so, because our colleague has already made people. Sorry. Oh, what's happening? Okay. So, let's see the topics, the presentation of the objective, starting from the first one, to understand what is context. Second, to realize the impact of context on human behavior and how safety culture is affected. And third, how to raise the awareness to use this knowledge for the advantage of our companies. Companies are goal-directed, and as such, their processes and values are developed to direct the employees' behavior in the company. In the shipping industry, management of human performance has focused on the individual error-prone seafarers. However, work is achieved within the context of the company's processes, culture, and management planning and control systems. So, let me ask you a question. When you go to the grocery to pick up a bottle of milk, do you leave the grocery store with only one bottle of milk? Yes or no? No. Let's see why. We have two answers, maybe. The one is yes, I get in and then I get out. Or no, I accidentally walked by the cookies who led me to the donut and I left 100 euros later without the milk. It doesn't really matter which answer you give. What matters is to understand the relationship between system influences and personal discipline. Both factors always seem to be coupled, and in this example appear to be opposing forces. Let's watch the next video. This is an example of the store design directly driving shoppers' behavior.
Entrance to the grocery store. Americans in particular love shopping in its counterclockwise path. For this reason, the door to the grocery store will typically be on the right-hand side in the United States, and the checkout counters will be on the left. In the UK, it's often the opposite. For this reason, researchers speculate that this tendency to move in one direction is linked to the side of the road that the two demographics drive on. This tendency actually works in the store's favor as well. Research shows that the profits are higher in US grocery stores with an entrance to the right. It allows individuals to move in the path that they like and also exposes shoppers to the most amount of merchandise possible. In fact, Americans spend on average $2 more per trip when they move through a grocery store in a counterclockwise pattern. This may not seem like much, but when considering that every American goes to the grocery store an average of 1.5 times per week or 78 times a year, this amounts to enormous differences in profits. The periphery of a grocery store is also very calculated. Items that are almost always purchased in a trip to the grocery store, milk, meat, and eggs, are spread out around the perimeter to force the shopper to be exposed to the most merchandise possible. Shoppers will almost always need to go to these sections, so the position of the milk, meat, and eggs dictates the way that a shopper can move through the store.
So, there are many examples of how purposeful system design is used to influence behavior. Airports, amusement parks, and highways, to name a few, learned a long time ago that the way to control behavior is to control the system in which behaviors will occur. For example, I can slow down your driving speed by adding speed bumps, as you can see there, and making the road narrower. We dictate how we want work to occur by how we design system and process that manage work. So, if I want to slow down a process, I can simply make it more complicated. However, systems are not only effective at driving behaviors, but also at influencing the outcomes the company wants. I will give you a very effective example of a strong system influence. This is my favorite kind of shoes. The phrase, customers who bought this item also bought blah blah. As you notice, Amazon has figured out how to leverage both system and peer pressure to make you think about purchasing other items. And unfortunately, this process works too well. So, let's see now how, in many ways, our companies are in this loop. The company creates context. Context drives our seafarers' behavior. Our seafarers' behavior makes up the front facing of company that third parties see and experience, which represents our context, our company's context. Think of the context like this. So, companies, in order to get the behavior they want, are perfectly designed based on the following 7 principles. There is the company's knowledge, like policies, procedures, instructions, and the seafarers' knowledge, like machine's law, something like that, and these collectively create our company's knowledge. Simplify the structure of tasks, make it easy to do the job right and difficult to do the job wrong. Make the unseen parts of your system visible. Seafarers need to know why they do the things they do. Know what you don't know. Ask seafarers how the work is really done and then ask them to show you how they do the work. Exploit the power of constraints. Knowing that context drives behavior, think of controls that have the ability to influence behavioral outcomes. Design for error. Bad systems expect perfect people and bad systems fail. Work diligently to avoid single point failure. And last, when all else fails, standardize. Remember the power of process safety and the ability to design safety in your company. Now, let's move ahead and focus on the relationship between the behavior-based safety programs and the impact of the context to human behavior. Thinking seafarers choose to be safe or unsafe makes safety less of company's problem and more of an individual problem. BBS programs assume the seafarer has remarkable self-discipline to make safe decisions. The flip side of BBS is the doubt that the company's context and systems have the ability to influence seafarer actions. BBS programs monitor and change the seafarer's behavior using a rather detailed accounting system. But the problem with BBS is twofold. They tend to treat the seafarers as if they are the problem, and they assume behavior is a choice, and good seafarers make good choices. However, the idea that a seafarer chooses to be safe, or worse yet, chooses to be unsafe, runs counter to the fundamental theory of system design. Seafarers do make behavioral decisions, however, like buying milk in the grocery store, these decisions are not made without significant system influences. If you create beneficial context, you will produce positive outcomes. When, for example, we notice all of a sudden a seafarer standing on the top of a ladder without taking the proper precautions, we usually make a series of quick assumptions about the seafarer. We should immediately intervene, but we will also need to understand how this could happen. How could one of our highly trained and productive seafarers do something so risky? This example should give us to understand that instead of seeing this event as a failure of seafarers' judgment, we should better ask how this outcome became possible within the company systems. How was the seafarer involved to a situation where he or she stood on the top of a ladder in order to get the work done? The only way to ask that question is to shift from asking who failed to what failed. Understanding how a seafarer decides to do a task can only be accomplished by trying to understand the context, and that context belongs to the company's leaders and managers, not the seafarer who was caught on the top stair of the ladder. I believe that we all agree that we are in the business of managing uncertainty to the best of our ability for our companies. If we want a different outcome, perhaps we should design a different system. For example, the high-risk intersection in vessel's engine room will not really improve if we ask seafarers to be more careful. Instead, it can be safer if we redesign this intersection. Surely, the first option, fix the people, is cheaper and faster to implement. However, the second option, fix the context and redesign the system, is sustainable and effective. We can't really manage the unknown, but we can manage the systems that create known controls and barriers that limit failures which have significant consequences. One of the most important lessons that we must keep learning is that when we design a system well from the start, the system will be reliable and dependable. So, to sum up, the most important tool to manage success and failure in our companies is understanding and controlling the context in which our seafarers do tasks. Good systems are able to help us managing the uncertain operational outcomes that we will always have. We must learn what the system does and does not do for our seafarers and operators, and then consistently monitor our context to identify if we are getting the outcomes we desire. If positive outcomes are not occurring, we should not ask who is failing, but what is failing. Last, we should look at the system to understand seafarers' behavior, not the old school view of first identifying the authentic behavior. Most importantly, we must remember that context drives behavior. Thank you.